sixth episode of our podcast series, and the sixth guest is Manoochehr Shirzaei. Thanks, Manu, for accepting our invitation. I hope I didn't mispronounce your name.
Oh no, you did a
I
great
thought,
job, actually.
okay, thanks. And Manu, you are a professor at Virginia Tech.
That's correct.
Um, But we usually during this interview we want to know all the story, your career path. So if you can tell where you starting from your undergraduate study, did you study in the US or if you can,
Right.
yeah.
So I'm from Iran. And I did my bachelor studies in Tehran, a university called Polytechnic. And my field was civil engineering. And then I continued to master program also in Iran, also civil engineering with a focus on geodesy. And then I moved to Germany. So I got my PhD at Potsdam University, which is near Berlin in the city of Potsdam. And after receiving my PhD in remote sensing and geophysics, I moved to United States as a postdoc at UC Berkeley. And then I became a faculty assistant professor at Arizona State. And eventually I moved to Virginia Tech, which I'm there as a professor since 2020.
Okay. So a lot of travel around the world. Why you choose Germany after your studies in Tehran? And why
So
then you choose the US?
Right. So the reasons for choosing Germany was that as Iranian, receiving a visa for Germany was a lot easier than other countries. So I had the vision or the hope to make it to USA for my PhD, but I realized that probably it's not possible because of the political
Mm.
issues between the two countries. Receiving a US visa is not easy. So I focused on Germany. Germany has very good infrastructures in education, and there are very strong universities that offer degree which is comparable to what you can obtain in the United States. So I applied to German universities, and I was lucky to be admitted to a program at University of Potsdam, and that's where I got my PhD. But once I finished my PhD, I realized obtaining a good job in Europe is not as easy. And I like to become a professor. So that
Okay.
was always my dream, to become an educator at university, higher
Okay.
education, work with the students, write grants, write papers, write proposals, have my own lab. So in Germany and probably most of Europe, that's not easy, at least right after your PhD. So therefore, I applied for a postdoc in United States, and at the time, receiving a visa was easier. So things had changed slightly. So I
Okay.
could receive a visa. I moved to United States, and after a year postdoc at UC Berkeley, I received my faculty job, and that's
Okay.
what I have been doing for since 2013.
And I didn't know, I didn't expect this reply from you. I personally, I thought Europe was much easier and the US was much more competitive in terms of academia. So do you think it's because there are very few jobs itself, or it's because you need, if you want to stay in Europe, or you need like a long, let's say, career behind your big professor before you can get, let's say, a permanent position?
Mhm.
What do you think?
Right. So in United
Hmm.
States, procedures are very regulated, and
Okay.
transparent. So to become a faculty, there are number of positions you apply like everybody else, independent
Okay.
from original nationality,
Hmm.
color, where you got your degree, you can apply. And usually you receive a fair treatment, and the opportunities are many. So every year there are
Okay.
hundreds of openings that you can apply, even though the competition is higher because the number of applicant is higher. But just when system is transparent, the procedure is clear for almost
Okay.
everybody. And I had no difficulty to land a faculty job almost at my first try
Okay.
in USA. So in Germany, competition is lower, but opportunities are also very limited. And I realized that system is not as transparent. So for
Okay.
somebody who is not trained in German system and is not German probably to begin with, I realized that might be slightly more difficult. So therefore, I chose the path of crossing the Atlantic Ocean
Okay.
and trying my chance in USA, and it worked very well for me.
So you already from the beginning, when you started in Iran, you wanted to become a professor, you want to work in academia, and you wanted to work on geodesy.
I
Oh,
liked
mm,
always satellites. So
okay.
satellites were always my dream to work on, on satellites, something related to the satellite. And that's why I chose a mix of engineering, so civil engineering, electrical engineering. So I went back and forth between the two. So I gained some expertise from electrical engineering, some from civil engineering, and down the road I could combine them with knowledge of remote sensing, and that built my career. So I have expertise from the satellite and remote sensing side, but
Mm.
also I have expertise from engineering and also geophysics. So I can understand the processes, but also I can use very advanced technology to create data sets that are very unique and help me to do my research.
I have a few questions also about what you do now because that is very relevant to what we do in our society in the RSP SOC. But I have another question because I'm always curious about the US academic system. And you are the first person, the second from the US, but the first from academia. And from my limited experience in US academic system, for me it was crazy the amount of time people dedicated to work. So work is much more active. This is my before. So I also see people with bunk bed in their offices,
Right.
and that's something I think it's unthinkable here in Europe.
Right, right.
Can you confirm, or this probably might be it's just my
I,
experience?
it can be true, but I am trained in German system, so
Mm,
still I have my lunch break, one
okay,
hour, 12 to 1. It has to happen, and I leave my office.
okay,
I never eat in front of my computer. I have my weekends. I
okay.
leave every day my office at 5 p.m. So, and I have a big group. I have to tell you that I have one of the biggest lab in our university. So there are almost 13 or 14 students, PhD students in my lab, plus two postdocs. And everybody's very productive, and fortunately, they are very successful in their career. So I believe it's a matter of planning and
Yeah.
prioritizing task and attending each task
Mm,
when it's needed, and avoiding really spending extra time on something that is not worth it. So you have to really know when time is right to give up, to
okay.
move
Yeah.
to the next task. So this has been very efficient for me, and despite this large group, and we are fairly productive, I believe one of the more productive teams, and still we are, playing hard as well, while
Mm, yeah.
working hard.
Mm. And yeah, so nowadays you say you manage this lab, and what's your main research interest for you?
So our research is at the intersection of the climate change, human, water, energy, and coastal areas specifically as an environment that we are
Okay.
specifically focused. So we try to focus on problems that have several aspects. So we don't really do research that has no societal benefits immediately, for
Okay.
example, or we
Mm,
don't do a research that is not immediately translate into outcome that um, enhances the environmental security, you know,
Yeah.
coastal areas, wetlands,
Yeah.
deltas, glaciers, ice, permafrost. So as a result, we are very diverse in the range of the research that we do. And that's thanks to the technology of the soil interferometry and remote sensing technology that provide us with the data at a very high resolution, high accuracy anywhere around the planet. So we choose the problem that we like to work based on the criteria of the relevance. And you know, we always ask the question. So whenever we have an idea for research, the first question is who cares? If we cannot answer that, we probably would not pursue that idea.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
and if we find that that idea is relevant to somebody, some community, some environment, solve a real problem, then we tackle that. And has been very successful in terms of funding, particularly because funding often follows relevance. So if the problem is not relevant, funding would go away from it. And for that reason, we have been very successful in attracting third-party funding from many different agencies in the United States, but also we receive funding from agencies in Europe and other part of the
That was going to be my next question. Where did you receive this funding? So I will move to the next. So you say you have a big lab of between more than 10 between PhD,
and
postdoc.
16 at the
How you
moment.
manage all of them? Do you delegate or do you follow one by one persistently?
Right. So we have I have weekly one-on-one meeting with everyone. So there is a
Okay.
schedule posted. So and that's not long. It's about 30 minutes. Everybody who has that one-on-one meeting with me has to show up at that meeting, even if we don't have anything to discuss
Okay.
research-wise. That would be opportunity to just get to have a chat, you know, to talk about weather, you know, food, anything.
Weather doesn't look very good, I have to say, from what I can see
Yes, we
behind.
have a storm coming through,
Yeah.
actually. Hurricane Helene is coming.
Ah, yeah, that's
We are
true.
getting the
Yeah,
last, you know, arm of.
yeah, that's true.
But it's very beautiful. I have to say
Okay.
it's raining a lot, but very pleasant
Okay.
weather. So yeah, and then beside that one-on-one meeting has to happen. So it's to
Okay.
maintain our communication, and you know we meet each other. And then I have open door policy, so
Mm,
anybody can show up at my door anytime that they
okay.
have questions or needs to discuss any topic. And then I have also stand-up meetings. So I go around always with the box of cookies, and that's
Ah,
my
ah,
excuse, you know, offer them cookie and check how they are doing. So in this way, um, on the surface, it feels that I'm spending a lot of time. But
yeah.
since I attend everybody very frequently, problem never become big. So that snowball effect,
Okay.
some students deal with that. They start with a small problem, and then since that small problem is not resolved, it become bigger and bigger, and at some point create
Okay.
frustrations and other, you know, issues that sometimes led to students and postdoc quit their job. So my policies that tackle the problem at the source as fast as possible without it become even a small ball. So let
Okay.
alone becoming a big snowball. So in this way, again, it feels that I have too many meetings, but actually it's very efficient. So I don't spend much time because often problems are resolved within 3 minutes of the
Mhm.
meeting. That would be the whole meeting that we have. And then we have a weekly group meeting. So in this group meeting, the students volunteer to present, give a research update, but also we have something that called journal club. So research update
Mm.
is about latest and greatest research that they have done. They present 10, 15 minutes on that. And there will be Q&A in
It's an
between.
internal presentation, or
Say again?
it's an internal presentation for just for the group or for the whole
It's
department?
for the group, but we
Okay.
have always guests
Okay.
visiting the lab. So, and then we have Journal Club, which dedicates to new publications or any
Okay.
publication that is of interest to the lab. So in this way, we remain up to date about what's happening outside the lab, but
Mm.
at the same time, everybody is aware of everybody's research in the
Mm.
lab.
Yeah, so you I don't know if it's your Twitter or LinkedIn, but from time to time you always post like achievement of your student. Do you
Yes.
do by yourself or you have help on
No, I
also on
do
the
all of
social
that by
media?
myself. The
Okay.
social media.
Okay.
So it's proven extremely helpful to have presence on social media. So we reach many different groups that usually don't read scientific literature.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, politicians, for example, decision makers, very seldom read scientific articles because often they are behind the paywall or they are too technical. I
Yeah.
create a card, which is one page, look like a slide, with a picture, email address, and some key finding and a picture. That has been extremely well received by the
Okay.
community.
So is these people then contact you on LinkedIn and ask for information? Is that okay?
Always, always. Many, many contacts,
Okay.
LinkedIn, Twitter,
Mm.
also Instagram, and
Okay.
then email communications. Yes.
So it's because I've been talking to a lot of people and they keep telling me previous interview, yeah, social media is so powerful. They also told me that probably some of them are going to drop out from Twitter in favor of LinkedIn or Instagram because they were saying they are becoming more and more. Is that also your case? Or you
So, right. Social media is a double-headed sword. You know, one side is always toward you, you know?
have? Mhm.
So you know, um, people become very brave when they sit in the darkness behind their keyboards.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you would feel attacked. So I get a lot of attacks on social media
Ah,
by
okay.
all kind of people, you know, climate change deniers, then
Private
people,
message or they are private
both.
message. Okay.
They create accounts and that account go after me, after my family, after students.
Wow.
But it is what it is, you know, it's a you know, you can't choose and pick. So it comes together. So and you have to have a thick skin and
Yeah.
because I think benefits surpasses the cost of social media.
And I saw you also, yeah, you dedicate time to social media, you student, you probably would do teaching as well. And also I saw you in several US TV news. So how you can consider all this activity together?
As I said, it's German efficiency, probably.
Oh, Germany, yeah. Germany always at the top.
Yeah. But really it's matter of priority. So I
Okay,
don't have any wasted time really on my schedule.
okay.
I wake up every day about 6:30 and I don't have any wasted time until I go to bed. So every minute is accounted for.
So even because you say you usually at 5 you leave university,
Mhm.
and you keep working after when you go home.
No, I
Okay.
love cooking. So
Ah, okay.
I first go to the supermarket, see what is fresh.
Okay.
I buy that and then I go home, open a bottle of wine, you know, Pinot Noir, my
Okay.
favorite, glass of wine, and then I start cooking. So every day I cook.
Okay. Um, and talking specifically about your work, because recently, of course, you work on geodesy, different application of geodesy. But I've seen you probably recently your interest was on subsidence, land subsidence. You are also a representative at UNESCO. I saw you consult. I mean, you are a consultant for the USGS
Yes.
on topic like coastal flooding.
Mhm.
Why should matter coastal flooding? Why it's more important than, for example, sea level
Mhm.
change?
Right. So the coastal areas, communities, environment, infrastructures are at the forefront of the climate change impact. So large population live along the coast. Almost half of the world population live along the coast, within 50 to 100 kilometers from the coastlines. And you know, as sea level rises, you know, many of those coastal areas are flooded. What most people don't know is that the land under their feet is also subsiding, going down. And in many places around the world, coastal areas are subsiding a lot faster than sea level rise rate. So it means that what drives the coastal hazard, in fact, is not sea level rise, and the dominant one is the land subsidence. And it has been absent from the debate and discussion. So you would be very surprised to see that IPCC reports were published almost for 30 years. They don't discuss land subsidence really. So if you do a word search within almost 3,000 page documents, there is maybe 20 times land subsidence or vertical land motion mentioned in the whole document. While for a person that is standing on the coast, for the environment, ecosystem, birds, or infrastructure that is on the coast, what matters is the relative change in elevation of the land with respect to the sea. And main component of that, again, as I mentioned, in many places is land subsidence rather than sea level rise. So we recognize that as a very pressing issue, and we dedicated a lot of time and resources to that topic. And to my surprise, many of the work that we have done on the topic of the coastal land subsidence was the first of the kind. Even though the topic has been very well known for at least 100 years, there hasn't been any concentrated effort to quantify elevation change along the coast and how that contribute in the coastal hazard, including flooding.
Um, well, and is your main area of interest the US East Coast, which I was one of your recent paper about disappearing of US cities,
Yes.
or it's you thinking probably later on also worldwide? What what are you planning
Yes.
to do?
We finished the work on the US mainland. Now we are advancing to the north, working on the Alaska coast,
Okay,
because Alaska alone is almost 1/3 of the US mainland. It's a very large state. And then we are going global. So we have a big project going on in Africa. And then we want to go outside Africa, South Asia,
okay,
and eventually we want to do a survey of the global coast.
okay. And the how this research is then translated to impacts in a way, are you finding, because you say IPCC, they focus mainly on sea level. What about the politician, the decision maker? Do you think they are, let's say, uh, um, they are interested in what you are doing and keen to make some changes?
I'm aware that our work has been discussed at cabinet level in United States. So at very high level in White House, they are aware of our work, and they have discussed the work that we are doing. And, and I see that we get quite a bit of attention from different sectors in the government, whether local and also federal. And we were invited to the discussions in many different settings. However, those haven't been translated into policy yet. And
Okay,
the reason for it is not only lack of attention. The reason for it is that land subsidence is a local problem with global impact. It means that decision-making to mitigate and adapt to land subsidence has to be made locally with the support from the federal and also global, international organizations. This requires a lot of organization and coordination between different entities. And just most systems, most governments are not made for that kind of coordination. So either things should happen at the federal level, for example, in USA, or at the local level. It's very difficult to build a connection between the two and make them to work together to create solutions that are tailored to every single community.
okay. And are most of these, let's say, non-scientists, do they, for example, believe you, or they are very, um, I mean, believe you because you are telling them essentially we are measuring ground deformation from space. They might say, nah, that's not true, that's not possible. Do you see like a sort of skepticism around scientists in the US? Talk about your experience
So
there.
it's a nature of science to have disagreements. So, and science would not evolve if everybody agrees on every aspect. So naturally, every paper that we publish,
Mm,
specifically, the higher profile, the more criticism you would get. So it's a
mm,
natural reaction. I have that too. When I see a high profile paper, my first reaction is that, oh, there must be something wrong with it.
mm, mm.
But overall, I can tell that our work has been very well received by the community. And again, we have some rivals that they have different opinions, and we are very open, and we keep the dialogues open, and we are happy to work with everybody to, create trust and confidence in our work.
Yeah. And what's next in terms of what are you doing for your research in your life? What's the next? I don't know if you have already a plan or vision for what you
Right,
want to
right.
do.
I have always 5 years plan. So, when I started my career
Hmm.
in USA, my first 5 years was spent on a different topic. I was working on faulting processes. The second 5 years I spent on induced seismicity. The next 5 years is on sea level rise, coastal hazard, and the next 5 years will be on permafrost and Alaska, particularly, and how permafrost degradation due to climate change and human involvement changes ecosystem and impact communities and infrastructure.
Okay. And are these changes driven by, for example, the people because you say you are doing something because someone cares? Is
Yes.
that your main? Okay.
Yes, yes. So I always listen to people. I read popular media. I participate in community meetings to learn what is the pressing issue for people, for the communities. And based on that, I decide what should be my research for the next couple of years. And to my interest and surprise, and is a happy surprise, is that always money followed that. So it was not like I work on a topic that there was no funding. So each topic that we started, in a year or two after we started, when we had very good preliminary results, we were almost established, suddenly a lot of funding become available. So we are always at the forefront of that, and we can
Okay.
get a lot of good funding and do good research that propel our lab forward.
And so, yeah, it's what you do, you say in collaboration with students. And I think I read somewhere you have been supervising and mentoring more than 60 between PhD, probably even more now. What's the relationship with them after they finished? Are you still with some of them in contact? Do they disappear?
With all of them, with all. I
Okay.
keep my relationship. So my network is basically those who are mentors mostly. I mean, I have a lot of collaborators
Okay.
outside, but really, I keep my relationship. I always tell my students and postdocs, I don't treat them and I don't view them as my students. I view them as my peer and collaborator
Okay.
from the day one. And that's how I would treat them, and that's how we continue relationship in the future.
Okay. Manu, that was my last question. So thanks for being here.